Welcome to Closers, brought to you by Man Cave Sports. I am the DA here. And first things first, make sure you make sure you go out there and subscribe to the channel. Send the links to all your friends. Let them all know what we got out here. It helps us get our programming out to all of you. And now let me introduce to my co-host. With me, as always, James Koulidianos. James, what's up?
Hi, everybody. How are you doing today?
Doing great, doing great. Got a special show for all of you. I am pumped up. I'm excited because today we have with us Hall of Fame hopeful Billy Wagner is on the show with us. Billy, let's bring you in and thank you for joining us on the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me. I wouldn't miss it for anything.
Dude, really, really appreciate it. I just got those out there. It's 10th year on the ballot. I know you've probably been talking through your brain about this thing, but it's only fitting that you're making it the 10th year last year, so you're basically closing out the ballot, and it's kind of fitting, right?
Well, it's nerve wracking. Yeah, I guess we can say that. Yeah, that's how it goes. But yeah, it's a grind. It's been 16 years to play was a grind going through it. Now 10 years trying to get into this elite club has been a grind.
I am so excited that we are hosting a show named Closers, and we actually have a good closer on once for once. We don't have some mediocre,
right there, James. Love it.
But Bill, we talked about it. The fact that it might take you 10 chances to get into the Hall of Fame to me is ridiculous. I can't name very many closers that are better than you, maybe on one hand. But do you think that closers and relief pitchers just don't get the respect that they deserve?
I mean, the game's so hard, and I think it's such small samples, and I mean, they do. I mean, it's a tough role. I don't think people understand. I think the thing that always irritates me is, everybody's talking about playoffs. Not a lot of us get to the playoffs, and not a lot of you get a chance to even pitch in the playoffs or being a situational game in the playoffs. And for me, I didn't I didn't even have a save opportunity to my second or third playoff game. So I mean, it was those things are we're only looking at elite closers that have been in the playoffs. So how many closers have actually been hurt and not even pitched in the playoffs and gotten to the setup man is closing in the playoffs. When John Wetland was the closer with the Yankees, Mariano was the setup man. So I tell you, it's a tough role. I think what makes closers so unique is the ability to go out there night after night and then have a bad week and still continue to go out there night after night. So championships are won by teams, not individuals. And so, but you can't get there unless individuals do what they're supposed to do.
Obviously there's guys, and we all know the names. Like when you're talking about Goose and Eck and Mariano, those guys have obviously made it in the Hall of Fame. But now you got guys like Lee Hoffman. It's starting to change a little bit about closers, right? That mindset that James, some of the writers start viewing it. Do you think it's the analytics changing it because the value of that relief pitcher has risen in the game, or do you think it's just that the guys that writers are starting to see just that closers, like there's a certain number that closers have to hit, and they're starting to figure that out?
I don't know if they had a number. When Goose and Suter and Raleigh and these guys were going through it, I don't think there was a specific number for what made these guys so unique. I know they used Hall of Fame and but the body of their work was supposedly their longevity, their numbers were what the criteria. The playoffs, things, championships like that are I think the cherry on the top. I think today's guys, how they're used and how we were used when we were playing were so different than Raleigh and these guys. They would pitch 3-4 innings and then they have 3-4 days off. For guys when La Russa started using Eck as a one inning type guy, then it just changed how often we could pitch. So you're still getting the same innings, you just don't have the days off. And so starters were used different, the game, and that's what I think changes. We're not supposed to be compared to our prior era, which we are because we're biased. But I mean, I think it's just when you look at numbers on a whole and how you're used, I mean, you shouldn't look at the guys in our era the same way you look at the guys in this era ahead. Because I mean, I don't know how you'll make a case for a closer moving forward, or a starter. I mean, innings, appearances, everybody's used. You got guys who are called openers now. I
Right.
mean, I mean, how are we gonna do this now? I mean, everybody has a role to play. Closers just happen to be at the end of the game, and it was the most important 3 outs in the game. Any way you want to cut it, if you can't get those 3 outs, you know, you usually can't win.
What do you think about the way they're treating pitchers these days? You mentioned that they have openers, they bring in closers for just 1 inning. Do you think we're going backwards, making it more specialized, or should pitchers be able to get in any situation and go for longer than an inning?
Well, the game has become all about metrics and numbers and ways to strategize a little different than we did. Your starters were meant to go complete games. I mean, ask Nolan, ask Bob Gibson, ask these guys. They didn't look for a Billy Wagner in the bullpen. They were, hey, I got this. And
They were the Billy Wagner.
yeah, absolutely, they were the dudes. And so now you sit there and it started to change a little bit. And I mean, Larry Durker helped me to get to where I'm at today by really pushing his starters to go as long as he could, which will allow me or a setup guy not have to fill in an extra inning here and there. And so it did make it easier. But now I just, the value of a pitcher per se is skewed, and the abilities of today's players are I think on a whole, their abilities, their craft is completely 100 times better than what it was. I think every guy is just a tremendous athlete, the hitters and everything. What I see is different is just the how you have to go about pitching. I mean, could we honestly say any of us would be as good as we were today if we had to pitch in a strike zone that actually is monitored? I mean, and think about it, Tony Gwynn and guys like that hitting when all of a sudden you have to throw a strike. You don't get a ball off. Holy God, he'd have hit 500. George
They were the
Brett.
monitors.
Oh my God, it would have been unbelievable. And so, in so many things, the game has gotten a lot tougher. But it has you've changed how you make a pitcher pitch. Their stuff's great, but probably 50% of the time they're just chucking it down the middle and letting their stuff work and playing the percentages of the guy getting out.
Yeah, so you started mentioning stuff, which is obviously when you stepped on the scene, right? When you first started pitching, stuff is exactly the way me watching you was how I described. That's different. It's just stuff. You're like, that's unhittable type of stuff. It's pretty cool. I saw your interview you did when you went back to the Mets this year. And you're talking about, because people kind of try to compare like Mariano to you and stuff like that. It's not, there's no comparison. He did it one way, you did it another way, which is awesome. Like I emulated you. I'd watch people like, oh, watch Mariano. I'm like, I can watch his mindset. I can't watch his stuff because that's not me. I watched you. You changed the game, right? So and power stuff. Like people used to have power stuff, but there became a different explosive type of stuff. Upper zone, fastball, riding that fastball up in the zone. Do you feel at the time, do you feel like you were changing the game? And do you look at it now and say like, dude, like upper part of the zone, hard fastball with honestly, if we had the metrics, right, we know it'd be a high spin rate with upper vertical approach angle,
Right.
with high rugged, it'd be all that stuff, and people would be talking about it all through there. At the end of the day, we talked about it as a hard fastball up in the zone that you couldn't hit, right? We all knew it.
Yeah, and I think there's deception too. I'm throwing right out of my chest
Absolutely.
or right at my ear. I think that's
Right.
the uniqueness
Like,
too.
well, right
It
in
was
front of you.
it's bows and arrows, buddy. And so I think that's what made everything unique. I mean, when you look at guys like Trevor and Mo and Suter and Gossage, they all had a signature pitch, just no different than me. This is what we brought to the table, and win and lose. That's how you're going to do it. And so, changing the game, it was still the mentality of a Goose Gossage walking out there and daring you to hit that fastball. And I didn't have a very good breaking ball. It was just good enough because everybody had to respect the fastball because I threw up and in, I threw down the way. I threw in all the quadrants using my fastball as good as I could, but the breaking ball was just enough and had enough efficiency to it that I could go out there and use it. But these guys today, you go out there and watch the Cleveland closer, you watch Kimbrel, you watch these. I mean, they pitch. It's like watching a surgeon. These guys are phenomenal. They don't have to. Their mentalities, they're not mentality like a Goose Gossage. They're not meant like that. But it's the game is still really, really great between the lines. It's all the things that we're measuring has gotten complicated because now where does the win mean more? Because the winning is what you really get paid for, and your numbers are bipartisan of going out to win. And so when you go out there and the velocity, if you can't throw to corners or you can't pitch in and out and you can't do these things, it doesn't matter what your stuff is. But in that day and age, I thought it was just you knew you had to know the umpires more than you had to know the actual strike zone like now.
When you made the show, I'm assuming that you were more of a thrower than a pitcher, like most young pitchers. When did you get comfortable enough to say, you know what, I'm no longer a thrower, now I'm a pitcher? How long did it take for you?
Well, about 16 years. I think that was some of the I think later in my career, obviously, I got better and efficient. I think I always wanted to cut down my walks and things like that. But what made me was being effectively wild. And so if you dug in, you might get one under your neck, and not even intentional. And having arm side run and just something people hadn't seen it before. So, there was some uniqueness to what I bring. But I thought probably. I didn't really get comfortable like saying, hey, I've got this. I mean, I knew what I had to do. I knew how to get 3 outs. I knew, what it was about. But I don't know if I ever got comfortable saying that, this is easy or I can just do this.
So when did you actually get comfortable making 3 outs, right? So you came up through the minors as a starter, right? And you never had a game finished until you're stepping into the big leagues. Totally different, like completely. People think it's easy. Totally different mindset, totally different attitude. When did the 3 outs become the most important 3 outs? Like, how did that transition happen?
When they keep putting you out there, that's when it really starts to kind of like, hey, this is meaningful. It's one thing to come in with a 4 or 5 run lead. It really is, because you're like, oh, you're the closer. You can come in. Even a 3-run lead's a little different than a 2-1 because you're a bloop and a blast, or you're a walk and a home run. It's just a million things that could go on. And the mindset of hitters change from 5 to 4 to 3 to 2-run leads, even 1-run leads. So, for me, the more I kept going out there, they were going to keep doing this. I mean, I was actually called up in 96 to make a start. I was supposed to start, and Greg Swindell had been released so that I could make a start. Donnie Wall, one of my closest friends, was 4-0 and was just dealing, just a great pitcher. He goes out there and he's pitching, and they wanted to give me an extra day, and so he slid into that. But at that time, our closer Todd Jones had gotten hurt his shoulder or something like that, and they go, hey, let's give him an inning here and stuff. All of a sudden, the numbers. All of a sudden, they're seeing the radar numbers, and they go, oh, that's new. We like that. Yeah, that works. And so all of a sudden, that was when everything started, because now everybody's like, oh, this kid throws hard. And I think that's, what kind of threw me into that closer role, not because I couldn't be a starter. It was just the fact that this is what we're dealing with. I would have not probably changed a thing as a starter until I'd gotten down the road, because I was going to throw hard for as long as I could throw hard and mix in a breaking ball and a changeup the whole time. That was how it was going to be. It was going to be 90% fastballs until I got older. But, the closing thing was just, a lucky draw where an injury and a guy pitching well gave me that opportunity.
Bill, you had a lot of stops in your career. You're with the Mets, the Phillies, the Braves, the Houston. Where was your favorite place?
There was a couple. I think what, stands out, I mean, learning how to mature as a player takes stops and longevity. I think when I first went to Philly, it was like a complete newness to the game because I'd never been in an environment as a home in my home, I guess, field that was so just passionate. And, I'd never seen that because I'd come in Houston, didn't have the media. Now you go to Philly and good wasn't good enough. And then my next stop, I go to New York and, that's a whole different beast. But if you want to be great, you want to have a chance to go home, you got to go to New York. You have to go play in the big markets and deal with that pressure. And then, so those stops, there was parts of the Philadelphia, the New York, Boston, and Atlanta that I just really love. Now, I'm always going to be biased to Atlanta because my family, we all grew up watching the Braves, and my grandparents, that was actually about the only station they could get at times at TBS and to watch or WGNs. And so that's me. So we've been growing up, and Dale Murphy was my favorite player. And so, I was biased. And so when I had a chance to go to Atlanta, that was a no-brainer. But I think every place there had that special moments and stuff like that. You had your special moments and you had some regrets that you wish you could have done better. Those were all the athletes, I think.
Let's call it what it is, though. If you make the Hall of Fame, you're going to go in as a Met because you wouldn't do that to me. You wouldn't go in as a Philly or a Brave to piss me off, would you?
Oh my gosh. I don't even think I have a choice. I think the only choice I have is to go in as nothing. So I think you have to go in as Astro. So I don't know.
I know. I'm teasing you, Bill.
It's got to be an Astro. Just a plain fact. And I wanted to talk about this.
But I will say the Mets have really taken care of me. I will say that they have all the places. They really, I get more calls from Jay Horowitz and stuff about doing stuff. Jay is the
That's a name.
Greatest. Oh, he's the great. Everybody knows Jay, but he's the greatest. PR guy and he probably does more stuff for me. He's talked to me more about the Hall of Fame than anybody. It's unbelievable.
Oh my God, the best Jay Horowitz story I had was when I was with him. One of the players had posted a picture online of them with a gun. And instead of deleting the picture, he went on and retweeted the picture. And so the whole world then saw the picture that only a couple people had seen. Now he retweeted it to the world. And it's like, Jay, that's just so absolute gold. But the Astros,
for those of you out there who don't know who Jay Horowitz is, Jay Horowitz was the head of PR for the New York Mets for many, many years. For guys like us, we know who Jay is, but some of the viewers won't know who he is.
Jay, well, the best, absolute best, just pure,
absolutely
just great. I grew up in Houston a little bit, right? When I went to Rice and that 02, 03. Sitting there watching the Astros, and pretty cool teams, some pretty great teams actually. That 03 team, that bullpen, Dotel, you. Did you know how special it was at the time? Like, when you're sitting there and you're sitting in the ninth, you're like, that game gets the 6. Like, it's over, just over.
Oh, no doubt. I don't think people realized that was like that whole time you had 3 closers. That's when you had, and it fit real well because there was nobody, and Dotel wasn't selfish, Lidge wasn't selfish, and because the thing, and like we talked about it earlier in that year, and I said, because everybody's talking about these guys and having to worry about younger guys. I said, the only reason I have to worry is if I'm not doing my job. If I'm doing my job, I don't have to. And they were a huge push because they would go out, punch out 3 just as easy. And so you had to keep up with the Joneses. And that dude, they were. And Dotel was funky with his arm action, throwing 95, and then Lidge was just ridiculous. His stuff was so good. People, he was so good. He was so much fun. He made it look so easy.
It was like 97 with a slider out of hell.
Oh my gosh! So for me, I was a little naive because I was like, well, I'm still doing my job and I'm doing good. And the very next year I get traded. And you're like, what? And so, but look back and you go, well, I've got Lidge and I don't have to pay him as much in Dotel. And, those are things that, as a young player, you don't realize as much. But when we stepped in there, and I tell you, there's also, we had some bullpens where you had those 3 guys, Mike Jackson, you had him, you had Flash Gordon,
That's
with
right.
that, and who am I? I'm missing
Puffer
Mike
was there a little
Williams.
bit.
Yeah, Puff. I mean, and Ricky Stone. I mean, you had guys, and with Jay Powell and guys like that. You could roll out some thunder against some people if you wanted to go 4 innings and turn it over to the bullpens. You could, and it was a dangerous scene.
All right, fill in the blanks for me. Billy Wagner is on the mound, and this is the player that I don't want to see.
I was going to ask.
Miguel Olivo.
Right. Just the most randoms.
Nobody. Everybody thinks that. Everybody's like, really? I'm like, yeah. I mean, you give me you. Oh my God! But I'm gonna tell you, I couldn't get him out, and it would be comical. He would walk up, and you could just. He knew it, and I knew it. I mean, you're just like this. I felt like, hey, let me chuck this over into the, left center, right center, be done with this. I mean, he hit a 3-footer, beat it out, hit a home run. I mean, anything's happened. And, he's a Gold Glove boxer, too. Because I remember somebody saying, you know what, you need to knock him down. I said, the hell I will. I said, that guy comes out there, I'm getting my ass kicked. I said, I will fight anybody besides that dude. Because that dude right there, and he knew it. Because I remember we would walk by and I'd go, yep, at least get one hit tonight. I mean, it was just one of those guys. But I mean, it didn't matter what you threw. I've thrown some of the best pitches, some of the worst pitches, and I must look like a beach ball coming up there.
Dude, it's so funny because there's guys like that. Miguel Oliva for you. There was a longer list for me, but like Mark Loretta or guys like that. Like you're just sitting there, like I don't want anybody but him, and it's like you just can't. It's to beat them, and it just for some reason they just see your ball. And here's a guy that you faced. I'm sure you faced. I actually haven't looked it up. I'm going to look it up right now. Bonds, is he a Hall of Famer?
Absolutely, hands down. You know what? In the day and age where we're not really holding people accountable, and I don't, am I suspicious? Of course. But do I know? No, I don't. But I tell you, what I like is that if he did, he had to take it because he had to play against me. He had to beat me. He had to do those.
Like that.
I don't have a problem. Playing in that steroid era really made it more beneficial for me, and even a bigger case for the Hall of Fame for me, that I had to play against all these guys that have tested and are speculated to have taken steroids. And you know what? They had to do that because they had to beat people like me. And so, Barry Bonds is the best player ever to play the game. I don't care what he took. I mean, he could. If you messed up on the pitch, he'd get you, and I don't care what that is. I mean, that was impressive. He's the most impressive player I've ever played against.
I got it. 1 for 4 with a homer. Got him. That's it's a good list to be on, though. I'll say this.
He got me. I think he got me the last time I faced him, and it was one of those. It was a weird. I'd faced him 12, 14 times, and we had 2 outs. And it was a ground. We're in PNC, or is it PNC or Pac-Bell, wherever it is. Ball's hit to David Wright, third base, throws it up into the cheap seats. And here's what you hear now coming in, Barry Bonds. So I end up facing Barry. I'm like, shit. And so I'm pumping. And me and Barry had a great relationship. I enjoyed it. I didn't fear facing him. I didn't worry about it. And I think it was a 2-2 count. I threw a fastball. I mean, it's up and away, 99 up and away. And he backsides me, hits it in about the third row. He runs around. And after the game, he's absolutely, I couldn't ask for more because we had talked about it. Because I always challenged him. He would laugh if I threw a breaking ball. He used to look at me and tell me how bad it was, and I would just shake my head like, you're right. But if I don't throw this, we just want to add to the excitement. But I remember striking him out one time in Houston, and to end the game, and I get into the locker room. He's calling me, he goes, you mother, if you ever. He's talking about how hard I was throwing. He's like, if you ever throw anything under that to anybody else, I said, Barry, you're the A+ player. I'm only going to give you the A+ stuff. Why am I giving the B player the A+? And he looks at me and goes, fair. And that, but he I enjoyed facing him just because, it was like that that bully in the room. I mean, the guy that was intimidating to me was McGuire. That guy looked like he swung a toothpick, and he hogged that whole batter's box. I was like, holy God, I mean, that was that was impressive. So, but Barry's my favorite. He will always be one of the greatest players, and he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, his smile and stuff, his joy. He loved the game. I think a lot of people think he probably hated the game. He loved the game and loved the competition, and like on all sides of it, on and off the field. But Miguel Oliva, yeah, 8 for 12 with the 2 home runs, had the most home runs, tied for the most home runs you'd ever given up.
Oh yeah, he loved it. That dude would make sure I was plush, buddy. He had food for me. He made sure there was a limousine to bring me to the field.
Got you the field.
Hey baby, he's high fiving. We come in. Oh, you look great today. I mean, he was great though. I mean, you always have those guys, and I mean, the guys that probably don't get the most kudos, but I mean, Juan Pierre. Holy cow, that guy sucked the face. He was a nightmare. David Eckstein. I mean, you're 12 pitches in before you, and you got to face the dude behind him. Oh, I hated that. I'd be like, man, can you just hit this ground ball? Can you just, because you're not getting to pop up, and that guy knew how to rise to the occasion. And so, Juan Pierre's and guys like that, Mark Loretta's coming in. They were professional hitters who knew how to do it, and probably don't get all the kudos, but my gosh, they were the absolute glue to most teams.
Billy, who are the guys that you like watching in today's game? Whether give me one hitter and one pitcher that you really enjoy watching.
Goodness sakes. Well, I like watching Will Wagner hit. I'm a big fan of him. Watching him.
He's not bad.
I'm a big fan of watching him.
Billy's son, for those of you who don't know, who plays for the Blue Jays, the team that David has his shirt on today.
Being biased as a pitcher, I do like watching Garrett Cole. I do like guys who have that stuff quality, who doesn't back down. I like watching Garrett.
What do you think of Skeens?
Well, he's a different beast. He is a different beast. I mean, he's. I mean, right now he's just too good. I mean, his stuff. It's like watching John Smoltz young again. I mean, his stuff is John Smoltz all over, and he's very calm, relaxed, and he just knows he's a dude. That's what's really impressive and stuff. I do like watching him. I definitely will turn in a game to watch him. The other hitter I like watching is Vlad. Vlad has impressed me more and more as I've gotten to watch him because I'm watching Toronto, but him, there are quite a few guys that, and Altuve is fun to watch. But and I know this is terrible and all hitters in the world are going to hate me, even my son, but the strike zone's so different now. I mean, you literally don't get away with a ball. I mean, if it is a ball, it's one of those balls that we used to get away with when we were playing, a ball off. And as a big league hitter, you're so big and strong. And I mean, you got triple dip bats and you're hitting off of rock flights. I mean, you'd think hitters were going to be a little bit better. I know the pitchers are better and their stuff's better, but the zone's so much more condensed. And, you would think because of just how well they, the game was played when we played, and listen to my son, he tells me all the time I'm full of it. But, and that tells you how hard this game is, that guys with, as much as they've condensed the strike zones and stuff like this, you're still not going to get guys who are going to hit 400 like Ted Williams.
Yeah, it's incredible. The game's definitely changing, but it's your son's getting a good start in it. The ballot, the 2025 Hall of Fame ballot, make an argument for someone on that ballot who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame.
Andrew Jones.
Yes.
Smoltz, Glavine, and Maddox do not have the numbers or the championships, divisional championships, if that guy's not in the outfield. And we played against him quite a bit when we were in the playoffs, and that guy robbed more hits. He made more plays. And his first, from when he stepped in at 19 to probably 29, he was probably the best player. You could argue the best players. I mean, he changed everything. I mean, he took hits. Every hit was so, it was just tough to do. It was unbelievable how well their defense was with him out there. And I mean, when you have that guy running around the outfield, it's like having Devon White out there. I mean, the ball goes in there and he hits an out. And so I just think, and his offensive numbers, he was a threat. He was a big threat too. But I think I just think that his numbers, offensively and defensively, he should have been in the Hall of Fame a long time ago. I just don't think people understand the value of having somebody as good as him, and he could steal a base. And he could, and he was asked when he moved on from Atlanta to be a different player and to be more of a power guy. And so, that changed him a little bit. But as you get older, your game changes. But he was still just, to this day, I think he's probably the greatest center fielder I've ever seen.
I'm curious about your thoughts about Francisco Rodriguez, another fellow closer who is not getting the love that he deserves early on in his balloting.
Yeah, that's a tough one because I think he is definitely quality. He's won a championship. He's been the best closer for a long time, and you know how politics plays this sport. That's the only reason why he's not in. I think the criteria they talk about is off the field and things like that. And that's unfortunate because, for him, I was a big fan of him. He was just as dominant as anything I've ever seen, especially when he was with the Angels. I mean, it was game over when he rolled out there. He was, and people knew it. And I think that's why when I went down and the Mets brought him over, I thought, we all thought that was a great move. So, I think that, he should be getting more love. I don't know why that is, but, it makes you wonder, if I don't make it, Frankie falls off, what happens to Kimbrel and some of these other guys as you move on. But, there's so many guys on that list. You don't get on that list unless you put in some serious time. And, it's hard to tell what people are looking for anymore.
It's hard just getting on the ballot. I mean, David Ardsma and we used to joke a long time ago where he just fell short of the service time required to get onto the ballot, and we were going to bribe one of the writers just to get him one vote. It's difficult, like you said, just to get on there.
It is, and you look at that list of guys that are on the list and got 10 years. You got to have those types of years, and you got to be good above average on that list too. I mean, you go down through that and you can think of every moment that these guys had in their career that set them apart. And it's a tough gig when you get 10 votes. I mean, because on there you're like, yeah, that guy's good, that good. Now as a writer, you're scheming, trying to go, well, when do I give this guy the vote? How do I keep this guy on? I like this guy, and there is something to this. So, for guys like me, I remember when I first went on the ballot, I was happy that what I got. But people goes, hey, it's going to be a long road, and a lot of the things that happened to me this year will reflect how Kenley Jansen, Kimbrel, and some of these other closers are viewed. I mean, some people, may see it different, but I think a Johnny Franco should have been given more kudos and probably should be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, longevity and numbers and dominance. I mean, those things are all done in different ways. I dominated in a different way than Mariano. Mariano dominated different than Trevor. And when you look, and Suter and Gossage and Raleigh and all these guys were so much different than everyone. That's what made us all unique. And so when you put us all in that group, it's a very short group.
Yeah, we talked to LaTroy about this. He got on the ballot his year after the 4 years after he retired, and a writer had gone out of his way to make sure he understood how it was. Not the 10 years isn't the qualifier. It's even above that, the qualifier to even be on the ballot, and how much of an honor it is just to even have your name on the ballot, above and beyond just even the service time and all that stuff. And it was pretty cool. It's pretty touching to hear that being said. I got two more for you. I got to ask one thing I've always wondered. In 2008, when you were on the Mets, you made the comment early in the season about the clubhouse.
Right.
And the guys were there. You didn't even pitch in the game. I still can't imagine any reporters coming up to me after a game I didn't even play and had nothing going on and asking me about the game. And they're not here. Big shock was the comment, right? Basically being shocker that they're not here to do it. Carlos Beltran was one of those guys you might have been alluding to. As was the air pretty little stiff the next day in the clubhouse? Did you guys clear that?
Oh yeah. There was a lot. And and the funny thing is, if you've been in if you've been in the Mets locker room, the pitchers are on one side and the hitters are on the other, and so they come in and they were going, there's no hitters here. The only hitters that were there that day was that were out there by their locker was David Wright, and they said something, and I said, well, that's a shock, and I wasn't pointing at anybody. I just pointed at where the hitters are, and so that became, and welcome to New York. Welcome to New York. You better, and that was, now all of a sudden it's turned into these oh, you're calling out these guys. It wasn't calling these guys out. I mean, it was just, you know what? When Billy Wagner gets his ass kicked, Billy Wagner standing in his locker. And I've had that. I think I've blown 80, 90 saves, and 80, 90 times I didn't walk out and go, I've got other stuff to do. I did what I had to do. I took my beatings, and I held myself accountable because I have other people other than just my fans to hold accountable. How my kids see me every day, and I didn't handle it right all the time by no means, but I was there every day to take that beating. And so, I wasn't calling my teammates out. I was just saying, hey, that's a shocker that they have been there, because for the most part they are. I mean, the Delgados, the Beltrons, these guys, Church was on that team. He played in that game. I mean, those things came back because those are things that, for me, people see me as a different person. They're like, oh my God, he's such a bad. No, it wasn't trying to be a bad, an asshole in the locker room. It was just, what, we talk a different way when you're in the dugout and in the locker room and stuff. And it's being accountable is a big thing, and that is coming every day. And when that group, as good as we have been, that was a shocker.
It's easy to stand in front of the camera when you're doing great, right? It's really easy to put a big smile on your face and say, look at this guy. Like, I remember my first game in the big leagues, I got the win. I don't know how. Some reliever coming in fourth inning. I don't know what the hell happened. Second game was against Trevor in his return and Petco Park's opener, and I gave up the save. I blew it in my second game of my career. First thing I think is Matt Hurd just said, hey, get in front of that camera and own it. Hey, like the part you played, own it, but with respect to yourself too, like you're still good. Like you just and that changed my life. Like changed that view of it, like own it, and then when you're great, give the credit. And it was it's a lot easy. It's really easy.
Well, the best advice I got was from Xavier Hernandez, and I came up to the big leagues in the Stick in '96, and they pretty much said I was going to be the closer. And Xavier Hernandez goes, "I'll be at your locker after every game with a beer." That you pitched, a beer, a water, and a towel. He goes, when we win, it's us and we. When we lose, it's I and me. And he stood there and he said that. And I mean, you can ask all the reporters in Houston, they would sit there. And I mean, Xavier Hernandez sit there. And I mean, I did every interview, I did everything. And it was always, that's the way you play the game. That's what it's truly about, because it's not, for us all to be champions, we all have individual selfish things that has to happen in a team setting. But you know what? Of course, Billy Wagner wants to go out and punch out three guys every single time, because you know what happens when I do? We win. That's the selfishness that you get to have. But there's also knowing that, when giving up a single on that guy scoring isn't as big a deal, even though you don't want to give up a run, knowing the situation. And so, those are all growing and accountable types of things that, and what people didn't realize, how many times you give up a run that was meaningless, and people go, you gave up a run right there, yeah. And you're like, yeah, that was my 9th out of 70 innings. I mean, it's so, you can never be good enough. And I tell you, when you go to New York and you go, I'm gonna challenge this system, going to New York and across the streets, Mariano, you know what you're getting into, and you know that you it doesn't matter what you think. Mariano's the greatest closer ever.
Yes, easy, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's you give up it's the thing about understanding the situation. I think this is one of those things that's missed in baseball that today and age, especially with the analytics, is if you don't have your best pitch every single time, then it's no good. And then we're forgetting how to pitch and how to get outs and how to get your outs and all that stuff. And John Wetland, you mentioned him earlier.
Yeah.
The greatest things he ever said to me is the moment I got that closing role in Seattle, he goes, it doesn't matter what the hell you do. If you're shaking hands, you did your job. He goes, don't care about how it looks. Shake hands. And we're having beers afterwards. We're having a great day.
Mm-hmm.
Most important question that we had this entire time. You've been on for 35, 40 minutes. Dude, this is absolutely incredible, first of all. I want to thank you for being on. But last question, the most important question, what is your outlook for the 2025 Mavericks?
Well, we should be pretty good, but we're picking fights with some big old bullies this year. So we head down, and we're going to play Tampa Jesuit, and then Stoneman Douglas, and North Broward Prep, and then West Broward, and so, and then we come back home after a week, and we play the top ranked teams out of DC and Georgetown Prep, and so we'll play 45 games, and we go out there and. The kids are great. I love coaching high school. I think it's the biggest blessing in the world to really get to enjoy watching somebody's success and their growth through their times in high school and being able to be a sounding board. But yeah, we should be okay, but we're going to have to play really well.
Billy, we can't thank you enough for having you on. You've been awesome. And in fact, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to step aside. Since the show is called Closers, I'm going to let you and David be the new hosts of Closers. I'm just going to be behind the scenes collecting the money.
Oh, I don't know. I'm more of a face guy than I am anything else. But I appreciate that.
Hey, thank you again for coming on, man. Really, really, really appreciate it. Best of luck with the Hall of Fame, but it doesn't matter. One of the most important things you said is about your family, and that's all that matters. And the Hall of Fame is the icing on the cake.
Absolutely. Well, I really appreciate you guys having me. It's also, to go on a show that's called Closer, it's always just an honor.
Thanks, Billy. You're the best.
Thanks, guys. Y'all have a good one.
All right, man. They're one of the greatest of all time, dude. I'm like perma smile now.
Yeah, dude, he's awesome. I'm so glad that we got to talk to Billy again. And, we haven't spoken to him in so long since our first iteration of the show, probably like 10 years ago. And he's still just the nicest guy. Really appreciate his time. It was like 8 years ago, actually.
About 8 years ago, right? It was like 16. No, it was like 17, right? It was like what full show. But man, it was so cool. I remember we got a guy named him, dude. It's just too many closers. It's awesome. But we are going to roll that straight into the 2025 Hall of Fame ballot. This is again one of James's favorite times. Talking about the Hall of Fame this year. James, did you have any way you wanted to break this down? Do you want to just kind of start with the kind of the bottom names and kind of work our way up a little bit?
You're the host, buddy. Anywhere you want to go. So start with the bottom, I guess.
I start with the bottom. So one of my favorite things, the way Baseball Reference, and this is off of Baseball Reference, the way they show it, and this is one of my favorite ways, is how they value whether you're going to be a Hall of Famer or not. So they have the whole list there, and like we talked about, you have to have 10 years of service time, and then even upon that, the writers then have to basically approve you to be even on the ballot. So it's not even that. It's that you're even worthy enough of being on the ballot. So a lot of guys have 10 years service time. And I say a lot of guys, very few guys have 10 years service time. But in terms of the ballot, it would be a lot longer if this was the case. This is
probably like 50, 60 games, 50, 60 players long every year.
Maybe something like that. It'd be long. But again, what this list is everybody that they think at least should have a conversation, at least be a part of the conversation, and they can justify somebody voting for you, like whether your name is Ichiro Suzuki or whether your name is Fernando Rodney. They can justify someone saying, yes, I viewed them as a Hall of Famer, or like I saw Fernando Rodney every day of my career and he is a Hall of Famer. okay, we can justify it. So to me, you should never question whether any of these guys got a vote, because the writers already stepped back and said, these guys are Hall of Famers, at least in the conversation of Hall of Fame. And then somebody might view them as a Hall of Famer or not. Somebody at least views one of these guys as a Hall of Famer, right? Or sorry, one writer views at least every one of these guys as a Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I mean, these are the guys that there were good players and then there are great players. And the question is, are they great enough to become immortal players?
Yes.
And that's what you are if you're a Hall of Famer. So all of these guys are great. There's not a single one of them that you would say isn't a top tier player that you would have loved to have on your team at some point.
Yeah, this is the great list. This is not the good list. This is to have 10 years service time, you're good. They're all good. This is the great list. And then we get to have this conversation of when these guys exceed greatness and become a Hall of Famer, right? So we'll start at the bottom. I don't know. Do you want to just if you got anything to say about the career, or I got anything to say, I'll say about it.
Yeah.
We'll go right there. Number 28, Fernando Rodney, Hall of Famer, yes or no?
No, not a Hall of Famer. Great player, but no.
Great player, had some incredible times in his career. 327 saves. I mean, but again, he was a little bit of a journeyman, kind of jumped around a little bit, but dude, he was a stud and made the sideways hat kind of famous as a closer.
Yep.
Give you one of those, Fernando Rodney, but Hall very good. Carlos Gonzalez,
not a Hall of Famer.
Not a Hall of Famer. Brian McCann.
He should get some votes. He should get a lot more love than he has been getting. He's a very, very good ball player. He caught a lot of games on a very important team. He's not a Hall of Famer, but should be one of those guys that should be on the ballot for a few years to have a conversation about.
Absolutely, and I agree with you. I think everything you said is perfectly accurate. Handled some incredible pitching staffs, had some great years in his career, on some wonderful teams. Not a Hall of Famer, but absolute stud. Adam Jones.
Love Adam Jones. One of my favorite experiences in broadcasting was the day that I had Adam Jones on the radio show with Kevin Kennedy on Sirius XM. And while he was doing the interview, he was pulled over by the cops for having tints on his windows that were too dark.
So, that'd be the best interview ever.
I was on the speakerphone and I told Adam, I'm like, hey, Adam, just tell him who you are. And the cop says, well, who are you? He's like, well, I'm a ball player. I play for the Orioles. He's like, oh, I'm a Red Sox fan. I know who Jacoby Ellsbury is, but I don't know who you are. And it was funny because it got picked up by some of the local, by CBS Sports, and Adam Jones gets gets pulled over during an interview, and they all want the interview. And we're like, no, we're not going to exploit this. Nothing happened. And they interviewed his mom about it. They said, what do you think about your son getting pulled over? It was just a weird situation. But as far as his Hall of Fame credentials, not a Hall of Famer. But again, in the same conversation with Brian McCann, should be on for a couple of years, not 5, but 1 or 2, just so he can get some more love that he deserves, because his career was good enough for that.
Out of all the guys so far, I would say him or Fernando Rodney would be the best on my list so far. These 4, great career, great ball player, and again, brought some awareness of some stuff off the field and stuff like that. Changed the game. Went to Japan, right? He's kind of all around ball player. One of those guys you don't want to face. Russell
and
Martin,
a good dude too.
You're a great dude. Russell Martin.
No, not a Hall of Famer.
Great Canadian catcher. Fun to work with. I played against them, played with them, and loved my experiences against them. Great battle, but definitely not a Hall of Famer. Hanley Ramirez.
One of the most talented players I have ever seen. Not exactly the best attitude in the times that I've seen him.
He gets into the douche category for a little bit. I think he got out of he backed his way out of the douche category, but he definitely was in it for a little while.
Yeah, he stepped in that category for a while. But really, really talented guy and had Hall of Fame talent.
Oh, yes. Hall of very talented. Let's put that way. Definitely had a very disappointing career compared to his talent level. Dude, there wasn't many guys I ever stepped on the field that was better than him. But just depending on what handle you're getting that day and where you're at with that.
Kind of reminded me of A-Rod.
A-Rod. I would say this. A-Rod's in a small list for me and most talented players of all time to play this game. I don't think he was there, but he was on track. And
What
that
I'm
might have been a
talking about
difference,
is
to be
short.
honest. It might have been a difference of steroids or not. Like in
Yeah.
all BS reality, Hanley Ramirez on steroids might have been A-Rod. We don't know. Well, we do know A-Rod got caught doing it. So we don't know, or PEDs, whatever you want to call them nowadays. But that might have been a really interesting thing. If he played during the 90s, I bet Hanley Ramirez is a Hall of Famer.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it. I'm throwing that shit against the wall. Curtis Granderson. So we're not, no Hanley Ramirez. Curtis Granderson. Are we going fast? We got to go a little faster, I think.
Yeah.
Here.
Grandy, love him as a player, love him as a human being, not a Hall of Famer, but damn, what if I was owning a ball club, I want him on my team.
Adam Jones is a great guy. Hanley or Curtis Granderson makes him looks like a bad guy compared to how great he is. Played with him in the Arizona Fall League. I remember I felt so bad. One of the guys broke his. He had a picture of him and his mom. Somebody broke it. It was like one of the worst days ever when he was. I just felt so bad for him because he was hurt. His heart broke. They didn't mean to, or they're just fucking around or something. But one of the best guys I ever been with, played with. I had the respect for him through not a Hall of Famer, but Hall of Fame man, Hall of Fame ball player, Hall of Fame teammate, Hall of Fame everything. Just didn't quite have like if Hanley Ramirez, Curtis Granderson's mind. Oh God. Oh God. All right, Ben Zobrist.
No.
Great guy. Nope. Troy Tulowitzki.
Another Hall of Fame type talent, but just couldn't stay healthy.
And then I was with him with the Jays, watching him coming back. I think he got locked up into some mindset stuff that just wasn't right, where he needed to change him, really make some big changes in his career to come back, and just was going down a wrong road as far as like just kind of trying to just change his mechanics and stuff. You're like, dude, like everyone was like yelling at him, like you need to like change some stuff, and he just didn't quite want it, or maybe not know it. Some people don't know it, but yeah, just couldn't stay healthy. One of my favorite teammates of all time, Felix Hernandez.
Nah, he's terrible. I don't like him. No, he's just not a Hall of Famer, but damn, was he good. He wasn't good. He wasn't dominant long enough.
Yes. I would say this. He came up so young that he was so good early on that he threw too many strikes. And if he would have been a little bit more of when he first came up, if it would have been in 2023, versus back when he came up in like 04 or 05, whatever it was, he would have won a Cy Young his rookie year. He would have been Paul Skeens, because the problem was he threw too many strikes, where nowadays people would be like, dude, you're throwing too many strikes, move the ball more, spin it more, move this. And because he could do everything. Back then it was about throw strikes. And I think he got hit around a little bit, not hit around, but like too many balls in play, too much action, and not enough punch outs, because he just wanted to throw strikes, and everyone told him to throw strikes. Then they told him, hey, spin the ball more, do this, do that. And then he was Cy Young worthy every single year of his career. What, you had something to say?
If he played with Greg Maddux, he would have been a Hall of Famer.
Hall of Famer. Yeah. Yep. I give you that. Like one of the very best. I've never seen somebody be able to do the things with a baseball on the fly. Like we'd be in the bullpen and say, hey, Felix, try this. And he would just do it. And then he would try this complete opposite pitch, and he would do it. And somebody who he reinvented what a changeup meant, throwing a 90 mile per hour changeup. The whole world went, what? That's a fastball. And he went, nope, that's a changeup, brother. And that was absolutely sick. Got to close for him for 2 years. I feel like I had a part of both of those years where he was number 2 in Cy Young and number 1 in Cy Young, where I made sure there was not one game. I don't think there was one game he ever pitched I blew a save.
That's good.
I'm proud of that, because that went on his resume, and that's my job, was to make sure he got those accolades. And great job, Felix. Ian Kinsler.
Nope, not a Hall of Famer.
Not a Hall of Famer, hell of a hitter. Don't want to see him step up to play when games matter. One of my greatest memories is getting him out. All right, Dustin Pedroia.
So unbelievably underrated. He is the David Wright of the Red Sox. He was there to turn them from he wasn't there for the first championship, but he made them into a legitimate Yankees type legacy for this century. Just very, very good. If he had stayed healthy, he had the MVP. I loved watching Pedroia play, played second base. That, there are not enough Hall of Famers. He should be on for 5 or 6 years just so he can get some love, but will never become a Hall of Famer, unfortunately.
It's hard. Like, you're looking at Ian Kinsler. Ian Kinsler has almost 200 more hits than him. He had a 299 average over his course of his career, and Kinsler had almost 100 home runs. I played on the 08 team with him. I believe that might have been his MVP or Rookie of the Year season. I don't know what it was. Jason Varitek was the captain, and he was the man. He was the captain of the ship. Dustin Pedroia was the heart and soul, and he was the driving force. Like Poppy Poppy was the one behind with the mic and talking all this stuff. He was the voice. Like yeah. Manny was the quiet, just do his thing type of thing. Pedroia was
who Dustin Pedroia is? He's the undouchey Lenny Dykstra.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, absolutely. Like he's the heart and soul. Like if he was a New York Yankee, he would have been Derek Jeter. Like
yeah,
and because you had the Posada, who was a little bit quieter, who probably everyone really listened to in the clubhouse, but you don't understand how important he was in those clubhouses and the heart and soul. That he kept us moving forward, feeding and pumping. It doesn't matter who was on the mound, but Petey's like, I got him, guys, I got him. Laser show today. Check this out. Get front row seat. I'm about to hit him. Like, and there was just something about it. Absolutely incredible. He should get votes, and he should stay on the ballot for me for several years and have some really great conversations because it meant more to the game. But he's not a Hall of Famer, but he's a Red Sox Hall of Famer to me, without doubt. He's a Red Sox Hall of Famer. CC
Hall of Famer,
dude. This dude, man, like what he did with Milwaukee when he got traded to the Brewers. That's it for me. Like there was nothing more. Like after that, you're a Hall of Famer. He just took the ball every 4 days. Drove them through playoffs and almost ruined his career doing so.
Yep. He battled his demons. I mean, think about this. If he was sober the whole time, how much better his career numbers would have been at the end.
Yeah, and he was one of the greatest athletes I'd ever seen as a pitcher. And he could still 360 dunk and do all this stuff, even when everyone's like, "Oh, he's so overweight" and all this stuff. He battled a lot.
You looked at that picture that was just up there. Alex, can you bring that picture back up there of CC? You look at him, he's a bit chunky over there. Now you look at him, the dude is jacked. Can you imagine if he was that kind of shape when he was pitching?
Yeah, but sometimes it helps, sometimes it hurts, all this stuff. It's just absolutely insane, like how good he was. He was good with the Indians. Like Brewers, he gets to the Yankees, kind of reinvented his career, and it was just absolutely insane how good this dude was. I don't know if he's a first ballot Hall of Famer. To me, he's not a first ballot Hall of Famer because there's so many of the core numbers that he's missing. He's got the 3,000 punch outs, but he's missing the wins, 251, and he doesn't have those just years where he just year after year after year through the playoffs. Like Billy was talking about how playoffs matter, dude. And sometimes you don't have chances, sometimes you do, but it does matter because you're comparing it to the other dudes. Not a first ballot, but he's a Hall of Famer in my eyes. He probably will be a first ballot Hall of Famer, but not in my eyes. I don't know.
I bet he gets in on the third ballot.
Okay, I can see that. Ichiro Suzuki,
unanimous,
absolutely. Best
unanimous Hall of Famer, which, there's the guy right there. Griffey should have been unanimous too. But yeah, I mean, once Mariano went in unanimous, how are you going to make any case against Ichiro? There is nothing. You want to make a case against him? Just say that he lied and he pretended he didn't speak English so he didn't have to talk to the media. Other than that, there's not a bad thing about Ichiro.
One of the funniest guys I ever played with, one of the best hitters, defensive, just absolute gem. Yes, he might have not been the diving catch guy, but that's Japanese baseball. It's a lot different than here. You don't dive. He slid for everything. With great arms. Holy crap, his arm. How good that was when he first came up. And just it's Pete Rose and him. It just is like the best base hitters of all time, and it's just how you want to look at it. And for me, I think he blows some of those numbers out of the water if he's in the big leagues his whole career. He's just, you would look at him differently but he couldn't be in the big leagues. He was in Japanese baseball.
It's so funny because for years all we heard was, oh, you should watch him in batting practice. He can hit home runs anytime he wants. And then, oh, you should watch him throw because if he wanted to, he could have been a pitcher. A couple of years ago, what is it, like 50 now? A couple of years ago, he went up against some high schoolers. He went up there and just started striking them all out in Japan. I mean, the guy could do anything. Plus, he was funny. He signed a jersey that said, David, pray for hair growth.
Yes, that's one of the best. I love it. Ichiro, 100%. To me, 100%. I've been with, I don't even know how many Hall of Famers I played with now, 10, 15, who knows. He's 100% Hall of Famer. he joins the Mariano crowd for me. Like there was a difference when he's just different. It was a different thing. Like Griffey should have been 100%. Maddox should have been 100. I don't understand how Maddox isn't 100%.
How Randy Johnson wasn't 100%. There's a lot of guys you could say that.
Change the game. All right. Now the guys that are already on the ballot, let's hit them really quick. So I know we've hit them before. We've talked about this before. David Wright.
Nope.
Is he going to go in this year?
Nope.
No. I'm glad he's still on the ballot. Torrey Hunter.
Nope.
No. God, it hurts my soul that he only has 7%, but I understand why. I get it, but it just hurts my soul. K-Rod.
Really should have a lot more votes in. I can make a case. He was the most dominant closer in baseball for a while. He should be a Hall of Famer in my eyes. I don't think he'll ever get there, but he should be.
More saves than Billy. I think he played more seasons or something. He was incredible. Absolutely dominant when he stepped on that field. Like from his very first game, he was absolutely dominant. That's the beautiful part about it. Like he came on the scenes and had a huge part of the Angels World Series run and then just dominated from there on out. Yeah, I should have more vote than that. Like, it's just disrespectful almost. Mark Burley.
Poor man's ace. Very, very, very good pitcher, but never did I look at him as the most dominant pitcher in the game. Great pitcher. Would love to have him on the mound every 5 days, but not a Hall of Famer in my eyes.
I'm still amazed that he has more votes than Torrey Hunter. Great player. Great player, like you said. Poor man's ace. Like, could just take the ball every day, but never a Hall of Famer. Yeah. Andy Pettit.
He's on the cusp for me. I know he's not going to get in because
I don't get that. This dude should be at the 70% marker.
It's because of the PEDs. The same reason that Clemens.
Yeah, but before it was illegal. And the dude just has one of the best playoff resumes in the history of baseball. Like Mariano. Right. It's like Mariano, him, and Schilling. Like, in all reality. Like, the greatest numbers. And he had 256 wins. Like CeCe's going to get in with 251. And Pettit was way better in the playoffs. Like, he was the greatest. One of the greatest starters of all time. It's disrespectful, I think, to the numbers that he's only at 13%. Jimmy Rollins.
The heart and soul of those great Phillies teams for a long time. Doesn't get the appreciation that he deserves, but won an MVP, but won't get into the Hall of Fame.
Bobby Abreu.
Lesser than Jimmy Rollins. Great player, but not a Hall of Famer.
There's certain things that he did that just like 60 WAR. I mean, he came up and he was just a stud. I don't know. I'm borderline on Bobby Abreu. I just sometimes I look at the numbers and go, whoo. But he doesn't have any of those big numbers. Like, he's so close, but he's never in the big ones. Omar Vizquel.
Best glove I have ever seen.
Still don't get this.
I'm sorry?
I still don't understand this one. Still don't get it.
The domestic violence allegations against him post-career really screwed up his Hall of Fame chances. I think he probably would have gotten in if it wasn't for that. But he doesn't have the hitting numbers that a Hall of Famer should have. And if you're going to get in just on defense, you better have a sparkling resume off the field. And unfortunately, he doesn't, even though he was never convicted of anything. But the allegations and the fact that he settled out of court on certain things puts a black eye in his career, unfortunately.
Best shortstop of all time as far as fielding percentage.
Mm-hmm.
Best shortstop of all time fielding percentage. So let me say that again. The most premier position in baseball, the greatest defensive player of all time. Ozzie Smith, when you talk about it all day long, the Wizard, he was better defensively. And by the same metrics, too, by the same people that were measuring those people at the time, not by today's metrics. Omar could do everything with defensively he can and still had it was 123 hits short of 3,000 on 123. Give me a break. And he was on some of the greatest baseball teams of all time. The domestic stuff, I get it, but there are people that have done way worse that's in the Hall of Fame, and he should be in. And the fact that Chase Utley has more votes, it bothers me. Truly actually bothers me because Chase Utley couldn't hold his jockstrap, I don't believe. Chase Utley.
Chase Utley. On behalf of my friend Tommy, I just want to say, screw you, Chase Utley. No Hall of Fame for you.
Omar Vizquel had 1,000 more hits. Omar Vizquel had 1,000 more hits.
Yeah.
It's a career. He had a career more.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the type of stuff. And I same batting average, like I don't get it. And then Chase Utley played on some great teams, so did Omar, and I think everyone looked at Chase Utley said, I want this guy on my team, but everybody looked at Omar and said, I can't get him on my team because he's not available. Like, he'll never be available. I just that. All right, couple quick ones here. Manny.
Nope, steroids. Got popped.
A-Rod.
Same thing, got popped.
Yep. Manny's got this the second to last year. A-Rod will be gone, and he's got 6 more years after this. Carlos Beltran. This starts getting interesting.
Yes, Carlos Beltran to me is undoubtedly a Hall of Famer. Could do everything you wanted. Played stellar defense. Could hit for average. Could hit for power. A very smart baseball mind. Yeah, the stuff with the Astros at the end of his career, that's going to mar him. But at the end of the day, he is a Hall of Famer without a doubt. Don't know if he'll get in this year, but he will get in at some point.
He won't get in this year. He's at 57%. He's third year on the ballot. He just needs. It's too high of a jump. You know, it's too high of a jump in 1 year. This trend looks like it'll be 5-6 years, probably 6 years. Yes. He has less hits than Omar Vizquel. Just saying.
Yeah, but Omar Vizquel played 40 years. He retired at 72.
I get it. And way different position. He also had 200 more home runs than Omar Vizquel. So a lot of different stuff going on here. OPS 200 points higher. But there's a lot of different stuff. Different ball player. To me, he's a Hall of Famer at some point. I think I've said no in the past. I think I re-looked at it and started looking at it. He is a Hall of Famer. Why would you get involved with the Astros stuff? Just if you're a Hall of Fame type of player, be a Hall of Fame man. And don't let them cheat so blatantly like that. If you got some guys' signs, you got stuff figured out. Don't use electronics to do it.
Because if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying.
Yeah, I think this is marring his stuff. I think it's marring. Some people say it's no. Some people will completely disagree with me online as far as that it's hurting his Hall of Fame chances. I think it's the reality of it that he was involved with it. I do think he'll get in, and probably the worst thing that happened was that the Mets fired him.
Yeah.
If they wouldn't have fired him, probably wouldn't have gotten the heat that he did. It is what it is, though, and I think it's going to take some time. I think there needs to be a real conversation about it, and honestly, probably one of the best things he can do is if he talked about it, it'd probably just like chill a lot of it out, or maybe just shut up and never say anything about it, like act like it never happened. And in a couple of years, you'll get it. Andrew Jones, 8th year on the ballot, 61.6%.
See, this is tough for me. And we talked about this a little bit the other night because, as a Met fan, I got to watch a lot of the Braves. And anybody who had TBS got to see a lot of the Braves. Bottom line is
the nation.
Yeah. Andrew was the 5th best player on his team. So you never thought of him as front and center because it was always Glavine, Maddox, Smoltz, and then you had Chipper. So he was always the second Jones boy. But he was one of the best center fielders, if not the best defensive center fielder that I've ever seen. And he could absolutely rake. You put a gun to my head, I would say Hall of Famer, but I don't like it as a Met fan. But yeah, he's a Hall of Famer.
To me, I look at him and Carlos Beltran, and I think he blows Beltran away. 2,000 less at bats, the same home runs. 2,000 less at bats, and the same amount of home runs.
Okay.
It's just like, dude, I know where I go. Beltran, so much power, like all this. And defensively, there was no one better. No one in center field. I don't know if I'd want. I don't know if I would pick Griffey over him, to be honest, because I would see him. I think Griffey was a smarter ball player. I think Griffey, from a hitting standpoint, come on, that's another whole other conversation. He would play in positions. I remember watching him going like, what? Like, why was he there? And then he was like baiting you to try to hit it over him. And he was just like, go get it. Like it was so easy for him, where the highlight reel of Griffey is him making the amazing catch and this and like the swagger and stuff. I think the game was so easy for Andrew defensively that you lose. He was there. He didn't have to dive. He didn't have to make the jumping catch. He was there. It was him or Edmonds. I remember you brought that up. Yeah. Edmonds is the one that you see him making the dive, making this, because he was half the player defensively that Jones was. Jones was standing there. and you go, okay, whatever, that's an easy play. Where Edmonds is diving, and that's the thing about him. Like, he was already in the position before the ball, before the play, before this. Like, it came so easy for him defensively that it looked boring.
Yeah, it's as if you're not a hardcore baseball fan and you see Andrew Jones, you're like, oh, why is he loafing? But he's not loafing. He was just so good at being in the right position. It was so fast and so good defensively that it just came so natural to him that he made it all look easy. And that's really tough to do in a sport like baseball.
Absolutely, and I don't think, and that's the thing with him. What bothers me is, you ask any player that played against him or with him, the answer is hell to the yes.
Yeah.
What Billy Wagner said, dude, like this, it's an absolute travesty this dude is not in. That's a Hall of Famer to me. I think if everyone looked at Carlos Beltran, we'd have a conversation and say, yes, and a good ball player, but this, and we're trying to figure out the argument. I've never heard anybody say Andrew Jones is not a Hall of Famer. Anybody that played with him or against him. I've never
heard a bad word about him either.
Never. And that's what bothers me is, like, when you sit there and look at the numbers across the board, they play, like yes, he only has 2,000 hits, but we're saying the dude, like, hit 434 home runs and the greatest, maybe one of the best defensive center fielders of all time.
Listen, if you're gonna talk about Omar Vizquel being a Hall of Famer, then you got to talk about Andrew Jones, because he was the outfield version of Vizquel,
and he had like the power numbers and stuff like that too, and was obviously a big part of one of the greatest runs of baseball teams ever.
Yeah,
Billy Wagner, just had him on the show last year on the ballot. He needs 5 votes. Does he pick up 5 votes?
No, we had him on the show already. We don't got to kiss his butt. Forget him. We don't need him. No, of course. Billy is a Hall of Famer. He will get the 5 votes, and I will be right there to ask for his autograph in Cooperstown, where it says Hall of Fame 25 under Billy Wagner's name. He will be a Hall of Famer, and he's going to go in as an Astro.
Absolute joke if he doesn't get in. He should have been in a long time ago. I understand why some voters might have held out early, but now it's an absolute joke. He revolutionized closing. Again, I kind of asked him the question, but the stuff aspect, he changed the game, because after that, everyone went, shit, all I have to do is really throw hard and pound it through the zone. It wasn't as easy as that, but I can just beat you on stuff. I don't have to be perfect with like a cutter and the best slider ever and all this stuff. I can just be that's why closers now are just who they are, because of him. He started it. He started that trend of who these guys are. Absolute Hall of Famer. And again, I think it's travesty if he doesn't get it. But if you want to become the next Billy Wagner and have the best stuff in baseball history, come to Top Velocity Pro. Give me a call. Give me a message. Hit me up on my website, topvelocitypro.com. Send me a message through any of my Instagram or Twitter or X, or you can go back to the old Twitter and send me a message. Go back to X, hit me a message, and hit me up, because Top Velocity Pro gets the very best out of you. If you're growing up and you're a right-handed player and you break your right arm and you want to start throwing lefty, we'll teach you. And we'll get you to be Billy Wagner status once you grow up to be lefty and throwing 100 miles per hour. So make sure that you get out there and contact me, man. Contact Top Velocity Pro, just like James did. I got James from throwing 40 miles per hour to throwing 45. It's just amazing.
Booyah!
That's boom. That's
boom right there.
All right. We got one more subject we're going to hit, and you already see it right there. Transgender debate. We got to bring this up because San Jose State volleyball, this has become a big deal. So San Jose State volleyball, I believe, I'm going to throw some numbers out there. I'm going to be completely wrong with this, but I believe they're 12-6 this year. 6 of their wins came from 6 teams forfeiting, choosing to not play. They have a transgender athlete on the team, and now they're entering playoffs. They're entering the playoffs, and there was a lawsuit in Colorado. The judge on the ruling said that he is not going to get involved. It was a last-minute emergency effort to try to stop this athlete from playing for San Jose State, and it was brought upon by the captain of the San Jose State team and one of the assistant coaches of the San Jose State team, which makes it very interesting, and several other defendants, including players from other teams that they've played. James, I don't even know where to start with the conversation. I'm going to go right at it. Should this athlete be allowed to play for San Jose State women's volleyball team?
No, that's like me playing high school female soccer. There's no reason. You were born a man. You're a man. Just because you say that you're a woman doesn't mean you're a woman. This is like the movie Step Brothers. Okay, you can't go in the backyard and pretend to be a dinosaur and be a dinosaur. Okay, you're not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. You can arch your head up. You can do this all day and go but you're not a Tyrannosaurus Rex. This person was born a man. If they did a DNA test in 1,000 years on his bones or her bones, whatever you decide to call this person, it would come up as a female. So let's just leave it at that. I'm sorry, but this is a joke. It's like Rob Gronkowski wanting to play in the lingerie football league. Someone's going to get hurt.
Yeah, that would be scary. So I don't think I actually hit it. The judge said that the athlete is allowed to play. They denied the case. But basically said a couple things. One, the judge, Judge Cruz, said they're not going to put a ruling on this case and stop this athlete because of basically two things: that the emergency nature of it, that the rule for the South or the Western Athletic Conference that San Jose State plays in has been around since 2022, where they allow transgender athletes to play in women's sports. So that's rule one, is like, you can't just come up here the day before the playoff, a couple days before the playoffs, and be up in arms about it when this rule has been around for 2022. And then all of a sudden you want me to stop it instead of bringing a lawsuit against the rule when it happened, you're bringing it now. So basically it's like it affects you. So now you're bringing a lawsuit versus the real idea of the lawsuit should be, is the rule correct or not? And then two, really simple, NCAA and the Western Athletic Conference is allowing this. So you can't sue me to stop the player when they're abiding by the rules. So the judge basically, don't take this case and the judge ruling that, yes, like it's totally okay to allow this to happen. They're basically just saying, based upon the rules that are here, they're following the rules. And your idea of the lawsuit is wrong, which I actually agree with. I agree with that. I agree with both of those rulings. They're absolutely correct. I can have my own personal standings about transgender in sports, and I don't think that this is even a conversation should be having, because it shouldn't be having. They shouldn't be in it. But I agree with the judge. Those are the correct problems. The correct ruling by the judge. Absolutely correct. The problem comes right down the bay is somebody's born a male and they want to play in women's sports. Like, this isn't right. This isn't correct. And to call it a female rights issue, the female, like, for women, and you're supporting a man dominating a female sport or even playing in it, it doesn't even make sense to me. I've always been, and I've said this straight up, I do not care what you are. I don't care what you want to be. You can be a man, you can be a woman, you can be a dinosaur, like you brought up. You can be a transgender, you can be whatever you want to be. That doesn't mean the rest of the world needs to acknowledge it or care. And your self-worth should not be built upon what anybody else thinks. Your self-worth as a male wanting to be female or feeling that you're female and that you're a volleyball player is not built upon whether San Jose State and other women accept you. It should be just that you want to be a volleyball player. And so I think there needs to be a space for this, because it's coming up too often. There needs to be an open division where teams can compete for another title. Like, you can be NCAA champion in the open division. You play against males, play against females. Whoever wants to be a part of this open division can be a part of this open division. And if the school wants to say, hey, you can have a team in this, have a team. Go for it. And it allows for everybody to participate, no matter who you are. I think the problem comes in is we say, oh, there's no difference in a male and female athlete. There is. In these sports, there are other sports that I would say, no, there might not be a difference but I don't know, maybe it's an archery or some other sports where power, speed, size, strength don't as big a factor. There's a much bigger difference than people think. Just look at world records. That's the thing about it. Look at world records and see where we're at. But I think this is a bigger case that needs to come up, where they need to actually sue the NCAA and get this across the board and make a rule, because it's not safe. And this, the reality is, it's not safe, and it's just not right for women to have their own space.
Right. I agree with you.
Yes. And on that, and on this incredible show, this Hall of Fame show, talking to Billy Wagner, I want to thank him again for being on the show, dude. It's like I'm gonna be happy all day just getting talked to Wags. This has just been an awesome show. James, thank you for joining me. Thank you for being such an awesome co-host. And don't forget to like, subscribe, get out there, subscribe.
And don't forget to leave some comments. Tell us who you think are Hall of Famers. Let me know why Omar Vizquel belongs in the Hall, or tell me why I'm an idiot. Tell me why Billy Wagner doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. If you can tell me why he doesn't belong in the Hall, I want to read it. Absolutely.
That would be great. I'd like to see the argument and realistic argument. Not because don't make it personal, make it about facts. And
forget that he was a Philly.
What? Billy.
Forget that he was a Philly. You know, it doesn't matter. He's still a good dude.
Oh, Billy. So stupid, Billy. All right. But make sure you look for us if you don't want to see our beautiful faces, look for us podcast anywhere you find podcasts. And thank you again for joining us. And for James, I'm the DA. Thank you for watching.